welcome back to my kitchen, and I am planning a kitchen day today. The weather is actually supposed to be snowing this week, even though it's April. So I have all of my plants, hydrangea bushes and things in my kitchen window so they can stay safe from the weather. So the sun is shining, but it's gonna be cold this week, and I want to try some new recipes like sourdough crackers that I have going, and I just blended up a whole bunch of flour so I can make some buns. So I have some in the freezer for hot dogs or hamburgers or things. They are potato rolls, and they're a favorite of my childhood, and I managed to learn to make them again, and now they're a favorite. So in the winter they're rolls, in the summer they're buns. My daughter attempted to make some thumb break cookies, but this is how they turned out. But they will be delicious with lunch, so that's fine. I just want to get a couple things started because they need time to rise. The sun is shining through the window, so it's a great way to rise things without turning on the oven until it's time to bake. And that way I can roll into lunch, but having some stuff already prepped so I can go through the afternoon getting some stuff done.
I'm always trying to find recipes that I can make at home, so I don't have to run to the store for a cracker or a chip or something. But also with, shrinkflation and the cost of everything going up, it's just also healthier just to eat at home. But one of the things I've been wanting to try for a long time is to make crackers, and I found a recipe for sourdough that will help me use up the rest of this sourdough. But some of my children don't love the sourness of sourdough, so I did find a recipe that she used some flour with sourdough to help offset that flavor profile. And I'm rolling this out and I'm like, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look right. It turns out all right, but it was edible. Most of my children liked it. There's some tweaking that needs involved, but moving on to my potato rolls. These will forever have a place in my heart because my grandpa always insisted on his own batch at holidays. But you can actually use mashed potatoes that are left over or instant potatoes if you have those in the pantry. And sweet potatoes are amazing in this recipe also. And this is one that you can start the day before and let it rise in the refrigerator overnight and then do the second poof the next day. It also is one of the recipes that I love about my Bosch mixer because this double batch uses like 14 cups of flour, and it's one of the things I love that I had to upgrade a couple years ago with my Bosch mixer just because we did large batches of things. When I do a recipe for the first time, I always go by the directions, but since I've been cooking from scratch for such a long time, I kind of know what I can change out and what I can't. But I always like to have the recipe made as just directed the first time, and then I can tweak it after that by adding different flavor profiles or lowering the sugar if it comes to a dessert, or I could add seeds or everything bagel seasoning or something to the crackers, but I did want to just do it plain to see how we liked it and the texture and all that the first time. And then going back to the potato rolls again, I'm turning these into hamburger buns, and I ended up doing rolls instead of hot dog buns because I'll use those for sliders or little mini meatball subs, or just half sandwiches or something. But I'm making a huge batch because I'm rolling out, using the oven once, and then I can package them up. I always leave things in the fridge overnight and then I move it to the freezer. And since it's spring cleaning, I am ready to kind of swap things out. Sometimes I'm not a huge decor type person, but I do like to switch out the picture frames or where things are. But one of the things is my freezer. I have not got it much out this winter at all, but I needed to get it cleaned up and to get it running here in the next week or two with some frozen celery and odds and ends things I had stacked into the freezer that will do a good first cycle to refresh my brain and an easy cycle to get through the first of the season. And these beautiful mums came from the grocery store. The lady at the grocery store gave them to me, and I just adore them. There's nothing like fresh flowers to brighten your day. Am I right?
This year, I am dedicated. We originally positioned these garden beds where they are because of the sun, but also because when we bought the house, there were tree stumps that were cut down but were still here. We didn't get a grinder to grind them up. We just figured it would decay over time. So that's what we're doing. But the problem we have now is that the wood is falling apart, and it was going to be way more expensive to replace the wood than it is to just buy the galvanized bed. So my husband placed a Home Depot order, and they're coming this week. My husband bought me grow bags last year, and I still need to figure out what I want to grow in there. I know I want to contain my mint, so I'm going to grow that. And then my big ones, I know I want to grow potatoes in, which I have never done in my life, but here we are. And I also picked up blueberry bushes on my most recent Costco. I'm contemplating going back for some raspberries or maybe more berries because we have a spot in the backyard, gets a lot of afternoon sun. So I might end up buying some raspberry bushes to put there. Other than that, I haven't planted anything. And this year I didn't seed start at all. I'm just buying my plants from the Amish store and from Azure. And I'm totally okay with that, but I am committed to this garden this year to actually reap a good harvest. And I've been reading a couple good gardening books and watching lots of YouTube, and I really like this philosophy of a garden bed where it's going to be a full day today. We have garden beds coming in the mail. I have errands to do. I don't know about your library, but our library we can actually check out not only books, but games and puzzles and apparently ukuleles. So that has to go back today after some fun with the kids. But I want to also be in the kitchen to prep because I'm way behind. Usually I do a big freezer cooking in February to fill my freezer in times of the spring and the start of summer that we have food that we can just pull out and make, and I don't have like any of that. So today for breakfast I'm making scones. I'm gonna make a double batch so I can freeze some, and then we have errands to do and put garden beds together, and it's just, the sun is shining already and it's gonna be a good day.
For years, I was so frustrated trying to make biscuits. I never understood why the flour and milk ratio wasn't right. I now know, after years of trial and error and, making biscuits forever now, that the flour in the recipe isn't all the flour you need. But a scone recipe, you can trust the scone recipe. You just need a sprinkle on your board after you mix it up. But it's so simple to make. It's a nice change from toast or biscuits or something, and you can add some fun flavors. Today I actually added currants, red currants. I had said in my recent Azure order that I was trying some because currants can grow here in Zone 5, and I wanted to add to my wish list of our homestead on things that I can grow that we will eat. And also I actually like that my almost 1-year-old can eat currants a little bit easier than me having to cut up raisins or craisins. So they're actually really nice. But in a cookie or in this recipe, they're nice because they're smaller bites. But I just paired the currants with some cinnamon, a basic recipe today, and I can leave the recipe in the description, but it's pretty easy. I double batched it because it's really easy. I just use my bench scraper to cut into triangles, but it's also something you can just pull from the freezer. Since it doesn't contain yeast, it can stay in the freezer for months and months, really, honestly. When you poof something with yeast, the yeast starts to die off after you put it in the freezer. But in this case, since it doesn't contain yeast, you can mix up a batch and have it in the freezer for months. And these only take about 15 minutes in the oven, so not long at all. And coming from the freezer, it might take 20 minutes straight from the freezer. But it's also a nutritious snack to have on hand to pull from the freezer if you're coming home from a play day or we just need something a little bit filling. And it's actually somewhat nutritious versus filling with chips or cookies or something that I could also have in the freezer. So it's also something I should bulk prep to have in the freezer, and like I said, you can mix and match flavors all you want.
One thing I did not do well last year is using up the preserved herbs that I actually freeze dried and dried And one of our favorite things is lemon balm, which is good for digestion and stuff. But what I like to do is make a lemon balm lemonade. Not too sweet, but if I really pack this, it takes the flavor, and you only have to add a little bit of lemon juice, as long as you get a good amount in here that's concentrated. And I always tell people I love to freeze dry mine because I have a freeze dryer. I like to freeze dry my herbs because it preserves so much more flavor than just letting it air dry. But if you don't have that, have some lemon balm and make some lemon balm lemonade, because before we know it, this is gonna grow out of control and I'll be preserving even more of it. Another one, I have a ton of mint up here. I have some ginger mint, regular mint. I don't think I have any chocolate mint left, but I'm gonna add a little bit of mint in here too, because lemon and mint go well together. Just add a little bit of regular mint. And then I have this electric tea kettle. Since we are a large family, it's so much easier just to do a kettle of tea than individual servings. So I'm gonna put this on, and there's different settings: black, oolong, white, green, decaf. There's also a boil function. So I'm gonna go with oolong, which is up to 90 degrees. And once that beeps at me, I'll put that in and let it steep for probably 15 minutes. And then it should be warm enough I can add some little bit of sugar to it and put it in the fridge for some lemon balm lemonade. Another thing that I just bought myself from Azure was some nettle leaf and some oat straw, which I'm going to, these are both really good for immune boosting, and I'm having something going on with my throat lately, so I have been drinking that in my own little personal size. It's great too, and it has a little wood topper. Let me see. Ouch. It has my own little topper, and then I can take this out when we're done. And according to the directions on here, I just do a tablespoon of nettle leaf and about a teaspoon of oat straw. And then we do have a water system that I can have instant boiling water out of. So I'm gonna go do that while that's boiling for the kids, and drink this while I get ready for the rest of the kitchen work. My goal was not to do a bunch of stuff that I have to use the oven for, but one thing that is on my list is to knock down how much sourdough I have. I need to clean this jar, and I want to end up using it for something else. But I have also a dry starter, which is where you double the flour and this much water. And then it makes it like a Play-Doh consistency, and then you can only take like a little chunk off of it to rehydrate it when you need it, because summer it's like sourdough can get out of control quite easily. So I want to use this up so I can clean this out and stop like overloading the sourdough. So I made some sourdough crackers yesterday for the first time, and we liked them, but I have two children that don't really love the sourness of it, and this sourdough is pretty sour. So what I'm gonna do this time is I'm going to use oil instead of butter. I'm still gonna use some flour, and then I'm gonna do a cinnamon sugar topping, so more like a graham cracker type of a cracker versus like a cracker, like a cracker. So that's my plan today. We're gonna see if it works. The crackers were good yesterday. They're just a little thick, but what I did is I baked them and then I left them to kind of dry out on the stove and put them in a container. They're fine, everything's fine. Just, there's always a learning curve when you try a new recipe. But today, I'm gonna turn these into a graham cracker type of a cracker.
To finish off the lemonade lemon balm, I did a 1/4 cup of cane sugar today and a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. You could use maple syrup or honey or what have you. Today I just wanted to use that because I knew my tea was hot and it was going to dissolve it pretty easily. And then I just pour a little bit down in the bottom, slosh around just to dissolve the cane sugar, and then I'll finish pouring in there. And then I topped it with ice, and it ended up being the perfect amount. I did not mean to do that today, but it is nice when that happens. Topped it off, and then let it cool just a little bit on the counter until I can just find a lid and put it into the fridge. And that is it. I'm so happy it is spring. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will be back soon with another video.